Welcome to Red Dead Redemption 2. We've added over 100 mods in order to flesh out the game a bit and turn this into a zombie apocalypse. And this is Arthur Morgan. He's been collecting pelts the past few weeks and he needs to offload these in order to make some coin. So the goal is to get from this part of the map all the way over to Saint Denis. This is how it went. First we tried collecting some supplies, but we were already getting sideswiped, but one is easy enough to deal with. So we started our journey down the trail and planned on using our bow just to stay quiet. There was already a group of zombies and we took out the first few before being grabbed in the back. We ended up wrestling free and finishing the last few zombies that remained. That was kind of close. We looted the zombies just for some extra supplies, but every time you turn your back, there's another one coming for you. So we grabbed our horse packed with pelts and continued on, keeping vigilant of our surroundings. There was some commotion going on in the distance, so we went to go investigate. We went to go help out the best we could, but a zombie immediately knocked a weapon out of our hands, and it turned into Zombie Fight Club. So we hit him with a couple 1-2 punches. The zombie hit his back with a couple 1-2 punches. We had to bring out the knife. We were getting sideswiped by a skeleton, and this was a close encounter. The skeleton knocked us out, but luckily our friend John Marston was just around the corner. He picked us up and dragged us back to the trapper camp, and he decided to come along for the journey as well. So we grabbed John, Buddy the dog, and our pelt pack horse and continued on the trail, and zombies were right there behind us. We had some nice shots with the arrow, taking out a few, and it was clear for the time being. So we pressed on. We couldn't lose daylight because it was even more dangerous at night. The only thing more dangerous than zombies is fellow humans though. There was a group of bandits shooting at us, so we had to take some cover. We took out a few of them, but in the end, they were hitting their shots and I wasn't. We ain't never gonna get these pelts over to Sandini. We have to go meet up with John Marston before departing even further. So we have to go to camp. We take our horse and start leading it to greener pastures, and we notice a shepherd and his sheep. What a beautiful sight to see. And maybe one of the only beautiful sights we'll see, because it's about to get real. We noticed gunshots at the local farm. Seems that a group of bandits were trying to take the farm over, and there seemed to be dozens of them. We took cover and started clipping a few bandits, but you know the gunshots attracted zombies, and the zombies soon showed up after. First only a couple at a time, then it was so many we needed to just get out of there. We may have cleared the farm of bandits, but now the zombies took over. We still needed to get these pelts to Saint Denis, so we continued down the path, but the path wasn't any safer. There were zombies at every corner. The only way to survive was to keep moving, so we kept going, one hoof in front of the other. It was a beautiful day though. Sometimes you gotta stop to soak in the sights and clear out the path of zombies when you can, until the whole group comes out of nowhere. We saw the smoke from our camp, so we decided to go pick up John. But when we got there, our campmates were already dead, and the zombies were the culprit. So we threw a few fists, and Arthur got beat up a bit, so we brought out the knife. But the knife wasn't working either. We needed something with a bit more impact, because it seemed that the zombies were getting tougher. The longer the plague stayed, the tougher these zombies got. So we got the ball out to stay as silent as possible and took out the zombies that killed our campmates. Now John was nowhere in sight, unfortunately. Hopefully he was out hunting and would come back later. So we searched around camp for some supplies, and John came back a little after sunset. It was dark though. There's no sense on going on the trail, so we decided to rest. But first we needed to clear the bodies. But let's just say that wasn't gonna do. With nighttime brings zombies, and a whole horde came to play. Arthur Morgan and John Marston had a lot of work to do. The zombies were coming from every angle, and we had to take them out. This time we had some help from John, thankfully, and Buddy wasn't too bad himself. So after taking the zombies out, we thought it was safe, so we started to clear the bodies again. Nope, the zombies came back for round 2. We couldn't even get any sleep. So Arthur and John once again had to fight for their life. But the zombies seemed to keep multiplying. There was just too many, so we fought tooth and nail, but we quickly became surrounded. It was an impossible fight, and we were taking too many hits. If we didn't get out of there, the zombies would definitely overwhelm us, and these pelts would once again not get delivered. We fought surrounded by zombies for as long as we could, but in the end, we just had to run. There was too many of them. It was nighttime and it was dangerous. So we whistled for our horse. We got Buddy to come along and we started sprinting down the path. And it was a sight to see, seeing all those zombies in the horizon running towards us as well. There was no way we could take them on single-handedly. We lost John, but we had no choice at this point. We had to keep running, and we ran until we couldn't run anymore. But there only seemed a few zombies chasing after us now. We took them out in silence and caught our breath for a bit, or at least tried to. Zombies just keep coming. We had to continue down the path, and luckily John caught up with us. but the night wasn't over yet. If we could just make it to sunset, maybe, just maybe, we may have a chance. So we continued to jog down the path, and of course zombies were there too, but just one thankfully. But where there's one, you know there's many more, and many more there were. We saw two sprinting right towards us, and we were quickly overwhelmed. We were eating zombie fists, like a double western burger from Carl's Jr., but this didn't taste good. One of them even started to kick Buddy. That was a no-no, so we saved Buddy and ate another zombie fist in the meantime, but then we quickly ended them. I got you, buddy. Now there was gunshots in the distance. It seemed like some civilians were fighting off another horde. We couldn't afford to get caught in the crossfire though, so we continued on our merry way. We found a river and took a quick dip to refresh ourselves, and hopefully the zombies wouldn't cross the water. So we got on top of the rock and scoped out our surroundings, and the gunshots were still echoing, and that moonlight was beautiful. But when you get caught gazing, the zombies come to play. We got sucker punched by one of these zombies, and he brought his friends to play. These guys were easily taken out though, but it was time to move on. We were obviously not in a safe area. We made our way, and it seemingly was quiet. We had one zombie sprint towards us, and that was a sign of a reckoning. More zombies came from every angle, and then it started raining. Some kind of foreshadowing, because in the end, darkness did come, and that darkness was another zombie knuckle sandwich, knocking Arthur Morgan out. Arthur's actually enjoyed a few days of silence. The farther north you go, the less zombies that seem to appear. But it was time to leave the tranquility of the north. We had an abundance of pelts to offload, and there was only one way to get there. So we were off once again to try and deliver these goods. So we headed down next to the river to follow it into town. We need to see if we can pick up some supplies first before we depart the area. Everything was nice and quiet though. You could only hear the river and the hooves of the horse. But the closer we get to town, the more the zombies would show up. Once we saw one zombie, we knew more would come, and surely more did. We've been stocking up on our arrows though, so we quickly took out the zombies. And continued down the path, but we didn't get very far. Even more zombies started to show up. The farther down we went, the warmer it got, and that means the more zombies there be. So we hacked and slashed our way to victory, and then had a little lunch as a victory. We have a long way to go. Might as well do it on a full stomach. We picked up the pace a little bit, and we saw the town straight ahead. The town seemed vibrant from a distance, but as we got closer, we noticed what it really was. It was a town full of zombies. It seems that the zombies have taken over, killed all the townspeople, but there was only one way to proceed, and that was through. So we tried to run through, and then a group of bandits decided to ride through as well. Well, that's some great timing. So we took cover in one of the shacks, but we couldn't hide there forever. We brought out the pistols and started shooting for our life, killing bandits and zombies alike. The fresh white snow was turning glazed with red, but we had to make it this time. These pelts weren't getting any younger, so Arthur turned beast mode and started lodging arrows and skulls, kicking chins in, until Arthur realized this wasn't going to be a winning fight. We just had to get out of there. We were wasting time and ammo, so we raced out. But the zombies followed. The zombies ate the whole town, and Arthur was their next hot meal. We couldn't let them munch on us, so we continued running through the snow, trying to get them off our tail. And it seemed to work. The heavy snow slowed them down, and we ran far enough to get out of their sights. So we were yet again in the tranquil silence of the northern mountains, trudging through the snow. But all great things come to an end. We saw two zombies on the trail, and got a 2-for-1 special with an arrow. And where there's one, there's many more. A scaly zombie came rushing at us, but we quickly took him out. And we couldn't hang back there. We had to get somewhere safe quick, so we had no choice but to run up the path. And as soon as we started heading up the hill, we saw a tail of zombies follow suit. We had to keep going though. The longer we stayed in one spot, the more zombies that would come, and that would be an impossible battle. The zombies may be getting smarter though. We saw some zombies trying to flank, but Arthur ain't dumb. He knew what they were doing, so we ran around and took them out. But the zombies keep multiplying. They're literally coming out of nowhere. So we took out the flankers, and we had to calm our horse. And the zombies were here once again. We are not getting any respite. The zombies knocked my beaver head off, and I had to get revenge. So we threw some fists for Zombie Fight Club round 2, but this was going to be a losing battle, so I had to bring out the big guns. I strapped some dynamite to some of my arrows and blew these zombies to hell high water. But the more explosion sounds I made, the more zombies that appeared. I guess that was a mistake. We should have stayed silent. We were quickly being surrounded by zombies, and Buddy was getting kicked to oblivion, but I couldn't help him. There was no way. We had to run. We'd kill anybody in our way, but we had to run. So we followed the windy trail down the mountain. Zombies were following, and Arthur had enough. He got some moonshine and lit it on fire. It was time to burn the zombies out. So he flew through, burned a few, and got warm while they burned. Buddy seemed to have made it too, which I'm glad, but we had no time to celebrate. We kept going down the hill, and there were plenty of zombies following, but there's no way we could take them all out. But we could try. We saw a body of water, so we decided to go to it. We know the zombies can't swim, but it was frozen rock solid. But fortunately, the zombies didn't follow. We were back in silence, a moment of tranquility, slipping and sliding on the ice, but for now safe. So we proceeded walking to the other side. But then the zombies got brave and started walking towards us. They figured out it wasn't water, and they quickly surrounded us. It was me versus them. A couple hatchet swings, a bunch of punches, but these zombies were taught by Bruce Lee himself. Arthur got knocked clean out in the middle of that frozen lake. We continue our journey despite all the hardships, and we wake up from our last knockout, dazed and confused. Nighttime has set, that makes the roads more dangerous than ever. Of course, we're joined with a horse packed with pelts, and we have Buddy the dog along for the ride. We continue walking on the lake where we happened to be knocked out a few hours ago, and it is dark. It's quiet, and you can only see the blaze of the flame. Now we thought we heard something, so we took cover, and we definitely did hear something. We got hit in the back of the head by a zombie, and got bum rushed by another, but Arthur ate those hits, and luckily got out the bow to get an arrow in the skulls in time. The lake wasn't safe anymore. The hordes were coming, but Arthur was tired of not surviving, so he turned into the green arrow for a second with a bit of Legolas and got the kill shots. One zombie left for now, and Buddy the dog handled some business. We had to go though. We were in the cold and it was nighttime, and that's a spell for disaster. So we grabbed the shotgun and the lantern from our horse, and just in time, because we had another zombie trying to ruin the party. We had to keep moving though. These pelts weren't going to sell themselves, so we ran down the trail and took out 2 zombies, and then another 2, and then another 2. They were coming out tonight. It quickly got a little crazy. The zombies were throwing fists and bullets were flying. He even knocked my favorite hat off. We were getting handled right off the bat. We just got knocked out a few hours ago. We couldn't get knocked out again, so we had to make sure to survive. Buddy was getting knocked up and I couldn't do anything about it. I started throwing fists, but the zombies were fighting dirty. They kept grabbing me in the back. We had no choice to try to run. If we didn't get out of there soon, we would surely die. But Arthur had to get one in at least, so we skedaddled out of there as fast as we could. And we were finally making our way away from the heavy snow of the mountains, and we were back to the quietness until the chase continued. Then we had to run some more. We couldn't even stop for a few seconds because zombies were right there to greet us. So we took out any we could on the path, and we noticed a railway in the distance. This might be an opportunity to get on the rail to get the zombies off our path. So we were headed there. So we winded down the path and up the side until we reached the railway, and it seemed to be clear. It was just the moonlight glowing. But just when you think it's safe, it's not. We were tackled in the back by a knife-wielding zombie, and soon his friends showed up. I don't know how it happened, but we were quickly surrounded. These zombies don't play, so we fended them off with a couple arrows, but there was no way we could make it out safely, so we had to run. There was just too many of them, so with the moon lighting our way, we ran down the railway, horse right behind us, and we kept running until we found a nice cozy rock. I wanted to scope out the area, find our next plan of attack, but the zombies followed us, and there was a lot. Unfortunately, I hopped on a dinner plate, and the zombies were waiting to get fed, and they were ravenous. They couldn't wait for me to hop down off the rock, so one of them came up and tried to test me. Wrong move, buddy. There's no way we can get off without dying, so we Molotov them. We hit them with 1, 2, and 3 to finish them off. What a glorious sight. We finally had a small victory. We waited for the flames to burn out a little bit and making sure the area was clear. We continued down the mountain even further with a little bit of quiet and solace next to the river, but we couldn't just sit and relax while listening to the water run. The zombies were always coming, so we took care of a few before crossing, and there was even zombies waiting on the other side, so we took care of them too. And then we ran down the path, the zombies following suit, and luckily we found a horse. The owner must have been eaten alive, so there was a free horse ripe for the taking. Now Arthur was tired of these zombies chasing him. It's been hours of relentless running, so we decided to give these zombies the same treatment and throw a Molotov. And this was maybe the biggest mistake we've ever made. The Molotovs definitely killed the zombies, but the explosion radius was too great. Our horse packed with pelts died, and with the flames, the pelts were ruined. We traveled a great distance just for us to burn our own horse, and this was a big hit. Arthur didn't know what to do. We were close to a town though, Valentine, so we rode there and shackled our horse. The zombie outbreak was rampant here as well. You can hear the sheriff shooting zombies throughout the town. Now it's been a week since Arthur had a proper meal, so we decided to hit up the saloon and get a nice bowl of oatmeal. Now Arthur needed some time to think. We just wasted weeks of pelt trapping and hunting, and we needed a new plan. We had to think, but we also needed to rest and relax. So we went went to the Valentine Hotel, but before we got there, the zombie tried to try Arthur, and Arthur was fed up. We couldn't even get rest inside of a town. We got a nice cozy bed to sleep in, and we definitely needed a bath. So we ordered ourselves up a bath, and we even got the deluxe upgrade. I think Arthur deserves it. After that, we went to our room, sat down, and contemplated for a second what was our next plan of attack. And then we eventually caught some Z's. Arthur woke up the next morning feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready to go. He had a new plan of attack this time, and this one was even better. But first, we had to gather some more pelts. With being Arthur Morgan, the hunter and trapper he is, this was easy. So after spending a relaxing time in Valentine, John ran into Sadie, and she decided to follow him. They then, along with Buddy the dog, went over to Beecher's Hope to go see John. Together, they decided to come up with a plan better than just packing a horse full of pelts. We needed something more reliable and sturdy. So days passed as they thought of a plan. Arthur and Sadie helped out around the farm where they could, and all was pretty peaceful. The farm was well fenced off, and only a few zombies here and there popped in. So after a few days of collective thinking, Arthur, John, and Sadie came up with the ultimate plan. They'd build a wagon, a tough, rugged wagon, ready to withstand anything that comes towards it. There were plenty of supplies on the farm already, so the trio got to work. Days went by as they developed the plans, and construction started happening. There were minor occurrences of zombies getting through the gates, but this was a good chance to keep our aiming right. We couldn't get stale in the journey ahead. The day had finally come though. The wagon was built. We borrowed two of John's strongest horses, and we put on the final touches as well. We now had a covered wagon that could withstand the elements and was capable of storing even more pelts than our original horse. This was it. This is Arthur's ticket in finally getting some pelts to Sandini. More days passed and more zombies were slain. We just had to make sure the finishing touches on this wagon were pristine and ready to go. We didn't need any trouble on the trail, so we took as much time as we needed. The day had come though. All preparations were complete, and it was time to have our last dinner at Beecher's Hope. So Arthur sat down with John's wife. I couldn't tell if he was mad or not, and then we all got some sleep because tomorrow was gonna be a long day. Morning came, and it was time. We had an empty wagon, and we needed to fill it with pelts. So this time, we're traveling over to the Grizzlies to fill up our wagon with pelts. Sadie rode shotgun, and John guarded the outside on foot, and we set off on the trail, not having to worry about getting hit in the back of the head by a zombie. We were just feeling the wind in our hair. We ran into a guy on the side of the road, his foot stuck in the mud, and a zombie chasing towards him. We stopped the zombie just in time, and the guy got away safely, but that left us open for a zombie attack ourselves. Zombies started rushing towards us, and we took out a few. I heard Buddy crying he was getting kicked, so I shot the zombie, but I also shot John in the back of the head. This was not good. I decided to stow him just like a pelt, and then I noticed Sadie was on the ground as well. I'm not too sure what happened, so I'm gonna take her with me as well and figure it out later. I don't want to leave them for the zombies to eat. We just left for this journey, and two of our mates were already potentially dead. Arthur and Buddy get out of there, and we continued going towards the destination. We needed a safe spot to check in with Sadie and John. The roads were foggy, and the zombies were no problem. Our wagon was strong enough to run them over, so we traveled across bridges, across the train tracks, and even into rocks. That was unfortunate. We checked to make sure the bodies were still in the back, and gladly the horses were uninjured. Nothing would stop us though, so it was back on the path. We eventually crossed the river, as well as another bridge. It had been pretty quiet for a while until the last river we crossed. There was a group of bandits waiting to ambush us, and they indeed caught us by surprise. Arthur blacked out, and Buddy dragged him to safety next to the water's edge. We lost the wagons and the bodies. This was not good. It hasn't even been a full day yet, and weeks of work were gone. We couldn't let this be the end though. We had to find those bandits that took our wagon and friends. We hopped on our horse and went back to that last location. We found our car on the road, abandoned. I guess they just left it there because there was nothing of value or worth, but the bodies were missing. We had to find them, and luckily they weren't far ahead. We went up the trail just a little bit, and we saw the bandits were fighting off a horde of zombies, so we went in for the kill. But we had to get past a few zombies ourselves first, so Arthur turned it into overdrive and cut down the opposition. Literally, he chased down every zombie he saw, and he wasn't stopping until the job was done. It looked like the zombies had taken out most of the other bandits, but there was one more left for Arthur. So Arthur went in and finished the last bandit that took his friends and wagon. They stashed the bodies in their own wagon, so he had to get them out. We had some good news though. It seemed Sadie was just knocked out, so we untied her and she was good as new. But John, there was no way John was alive. alive, yet he was still walking. He had a greenish tint to his face, a glow to his eyes, and his teeth were yellow. He was a zombie, but he wasn't attacking Arthur. Could the plague be becoming more advanced? Arthur has no clue. He ain't a scientist. He's just glad John's up and running. So we recovered the wagon. Sadie was still alive, and John was, well, let's just say he was half alive. Our hope of getting pelts and traveling to Sandini are still there. We started off scouting a local area to see if there's potentially any wildlife nearby. There was no wildlife, but there were plenty of zombies, and we were in an open field pretty much. So we looted what we could to see if we can scrounge up some supplies, all the while shooting zombies down. And then we headed to our wagon and we were off. We needed to get the best pelts in the business and hopefully not burn them all on accident like last time. We continued down the trail to the Grizzlies when we saw a for sale sign, and it sounded like a pretty good deal. So we went to go check out the location. The house was strong and sturdy, an outhouse in the back, and you could see from every angle. Unfortunately, with the zombie apocalypse and the hordes of zombies that came, this maybe was not a prime location for a base of operations. So we continued back down the path, and lucky for us, we saw a bear prowling the area, and this one was ferocious. It was handling zombies like nobody's business, and we needed some pelts, so we had to take it out. We took it out with a couple quick shots and then proceeded to skin it. We had our first pelt of mini. Arthur knew we were on the right track, but we had to get out of there fast. The gunshots were attracting zombies, so we hopped back on the wagon, but one of the more sneaky zombies yanked Arthur right back down. Arthur didn't like that. Back on the trail, the sun was setting. Zombies were rampant through the roads, but we had a clear goal. We were the Pelts R Us of the Wild West, and Arthur Morgan was CEO. Night had fallen though, and the moon was shining bright. We continued traveling up the path that was marked, but there was no way we could find what we were looking for. The sheer amount of undead in this location was phenomenal. If there were any wildlife left, they'd either be dead or turned themselves. Our first location was shot. There was no chance of finding wildlife over here, and the rocky terrain proved quite a challenge for the cart. Plus, it was full nighttime, and nighttime was the most dangerous time to be at. We were close to Valentine though, so that was our next destination. It'd be a good opportunity to regroup and set a new location to gather these pelts, and maybe somebody in the town might have some information to a more densely populated area with animals. So we made it to Valentine and parked our wagon next to the horse stables. Chatted with some local townsfolk, but didn't have any luck yet. It was late and we needed a rest, so we went ahead and got a bed at the hotel nearby. We got a nice comfy 8-hour rest, and it was time to get to work as soon as the morning hit. We hit the town and stocked up on some supplies. We then headed to the saloon to get some breakfast and a few shots. You can't start off your morning without a little bit of whiskey, and it's a good thing we did. We met a local hunter in the area. His name was Joe Miller, and he had a similar affliction to John. He was half zombie, half human. He was bitten on the trail a while back, but never fully turned, and since then, his tour guide hunting business went into shambles. Nobody trusted him anymore. We told him we were looking for a good hunting spot, and Joel knew where to look, so we recruited Joel to come along for the journey. He even had a place to stay nearby, so he headed to the wagon and rode over to his house, and we stayed there for the night because tomorrow we were getting those pelts, and Joel was leading the way. Morning had hit and we were off. It was finally time to fill this wagon full of pelts, so we headed off to the forest in search of whatever we could find. We found a clearing to park our wagon in and took out a few zombies on the way. We saw some elk tracks and decided to follow. Hopefully it was still in the area, but we had to be careful. Zombies were also hot on our trail. The elk did appear though, but Arthur was missing his shots, so we chased after it, and Arthur was able to make his hits. Andy also lost his footing. We tracked to where the elk was, and we got a successful skin. Joel, Sadie, and John provided cover fire as we made our way back to the wagon. The zombies must have smelled the freshness of the pelt because they were ravenous, but Arthur had some good backup. We sprinted our way back to the wagon and loaded our pelt, and the zombies were coming in. They were surrounding us, coming from all angles. We knew we had to get out of here. Those gunshots surely would attract more. So we took our wagon and went back down the path even further till we found yet another clearing. From this clearing, we cleared this area out. Zombies were still coming from every angle, and unfortunately, John Marston met his demise once again. But fortunately, we knew he was coming back. He was a zombie after all. We fought off a few more zombies, and our guide Joe Miller met his demise as well. But fortunately, once again, we all know he's a zombie. He'll come back sooner or later. So we picked him up and put him in the back of the wagon. It was just Arthur, Sadie, and Buddy now, and we went further in to see if we could find another elk. We searched for the trail, but we didn't find anything, so we had to go even deeper. We found some train tracks and followed that, and there was a great battle ahead. Some zombies on the side spotted us, and we took them out. They pushed us further towards the train station, and that's when even more undead came to say hi. A whole family came out to eat, but Arthur wasn't willing to give in. We didn't build a wagon to collect pelts for nothing. We had to survive, so it was machete time once again. Arthur went zombie hunter mode and and mowed down all the zombies he saw. But after the zombies were all cleared, we had another enemy on our tail. Bandits. But with the help of Sadie, these bandits were cleared with a couple precise shots. It was quiet now, and we know the amount of gunshots would have scared any wildlife away. So we attempted to loot what we could, but there were just too many zombies coming in. At least we had a beautiful sight. There was a raging waterfall nearby, but no time for sightseeing. Nighttime was almost here, and Arthur and Sadie pushed up just a little further to see if there was any more wildlife. That was a negative though. It was time to head back before nighttime. Arthur and Sadie headed back down the path with no pelts in hand, and it's a good thing they did. The night walkers were already here. We hopped back in the wagon and headed down the trail in the hopes of finding some solid walls to stay. We ended up finding a fort, and without even saying hi, they fired immediately upon us. This was a no-go. Arthur didn't like that, so we fired back. We broke through the doors and murderized everybody in there. It wasn't Arthur's fault they fired. So walking around the fort a little bit, we saw some pelts. This is a perfect opportunity to take some for ourselves. Unfortunately, when we got back to our wagon, our horses were killed and our wagon was shot to pieces. Arthur just ain't having any luck. So we took Joel and Arthur's bodies back out of the wagon because we needed to repair it, and we needed to repair it fast. The zombies were coming, and there were a lot. We once again had to defend ourselves and go zombie hunter mode. These zombies had hands, but Arthur had a hatchet, and he knew how to use it. We were mowing down hordes of zombies once again, fighting for our life, and fighting for the pelts we just couldn't seem to deliver. So we finished the zombies off. We took a couple horses from the fort to replace them with our fallen wagon horses, and then emptied the pelts we already collected. We had to repair our wagon. But this time it would be easier. The schematics were already made, and all the supplies we needed were in the fort. So we quickly patched up our wagon with the help of Sadie and loaded our wagon back up with the pelts. We loaded up John and Joel as well, and we had to get out of there fast. The undead just kept coming. So we left the fort with a repaired wagon, and we regrouped in Valentine once again. Joel and John had woken back up, and we now had quite the pelt selection from our raid on the fort. We had even more pelts than last time. We had one final journey to do. We now had to travel from Valentine all the way to Sandini. But with the help of Joel, Sadie, and John, this would be easy, hopefully. We took one final night in the coziness of Valentine, and we had some drinks at the local saloon to celebrate our success with the pelts. Now it was time to get some rest. Never have we ever made it to Sandini successfully, but there's always a first. So we got our rest and prepared to head off. But on our way to the wagon, some grizzly bears had invaded town. I guess they didn't like that Arthur skinned their cousins and put them in the back of his wagon. Damn. Fortunately, Arthur survived that grizzly bear attack and barely escaped with just a few scratches. Sadie, Zombie John, and Joel had Arthur's back through thick and thin. Arthur did need to rest though from that traumatic experience, but upon waking up the next day, those dangerous bears were still dead on the street. It was time to add their pelts to Arthur Morgan's collection. So Arthur spent the morning skinning those bears and stowing those pelts in the wagon. It was quiet today so far. No zombie sightings, just the fresh air and the smell of freshly skinned bears. We loaded the wagon with our final pelt, and then we did a final walk around of our wagon. We had to make sure it was ready for our final journey over to Sandini. The wood looked good, and we repaired a small gash in the canvas. But soon after the inspection, a storm rolled in. The weather was pretty wild this season, and you never knew when a storm would just sweep in. It was better to wait out the storm though, so we headed to the saloon to waste some time. We did have an unfortunate event occur though. The guy didn't look the way Arthur looked, and he challenged Arthur to a duel. That was his mistake though. Arthur don't play around like that. A few more hours went by, and the storm just got worse. It looked like there was invisible tornadoes. A horse was flying through the air. Poor horse. And we attempted to get our cart and try to store it somewhere a little bit safer. But as soon as we got close, it stirred up in the storm as well. What the hell? At least it left some pelts behind. So we grabbed our pelt and headed back to Saloon to secure it. It was bad enough there were zombies everywhere, but this storm was crazy. Arthur and the team chilled in the saloon until the storm died down. We had to see if we could find our wagon. And fortunately, the wagon landed right in front of the saloon, unharmed. What a coincidence. We loaded our pelt back in the wagon, and it was time to depart. We spent too long in Valentine, and Arthur's been trying to get to Sandini for what seems like years now. So we marked our map and we set off on our final journey. We had a great team. Sadie, Zombie John Marston, Joel Miller, they all brought something to the team. And Arthur, he was certainly grateful. So we left Valentine, Joel Miller in the seat, and Sadie, John, and Buddy guarding the back. It was nice and peaceful on the trail for once as well. Maybe this was a good sign. The snow seemed to be clearing up as well. Spring was coming, but with warmer temperatures, that meant more zombies as well. So we continued cautiously down the trail, and we saw another wagon on the trail. This one didn't make the journey, and we had to make sure we made ours. But we did run into something unfortunate. Our horses got spooked on the trail by some zombies, and our cart ended up hitting a rock. rock. Our wooden wheel couldn't beat the rock, so we had to get out and defend the wagon. The zombies came, and Arthur and his team slayed. They were fighting all the way till sunset, and it seemed like they would never stop. We finally slayed the last zombie for now, and we needed to repair the wheel. Luckily, we did have a repair kit in the horse, but night had fallen, and it would be difficult to repair the wheel now. We had no choice but to wait it out. We had to be vigilant. The zombies were more aggressive at this time, so we dealt with incoming waves of zombies, protecting our precious pelts. There ain't no way we're failing. Arthur and the team came too far. Zombie after zombie came though, but it was alright. We were experienced in dealing with zombies at this point, but they did have the numbers. We still had to be careful. So there came a point where a huge horde of zombies came, and somehow we survived. But one of them knocked Sadie down. She was writhing in pain, and the zombies were making it difficult to extract her. So Arthur tried his best, and the zombie knocked the gun out of his hand 3 times. But then we finally got the upper hand. We knocked out the last zombie along with John Marston on accident, and we got Sadie out of there before the zombies got her. We loaded her in the wagon, and we grabbed Zombie John too. We almost didn't find him. He looked like all the rest of the zombies, but we loaded him in the back as well. Now I don't know what Joel Miller was doing, but hopefully he was just scouting ahead. It was just Arthur and Buddy now. In the middle of the night with the moon glowing, we stayed up and protected the wagon, keeping an eye out for zombies. We listened for footsteps or the sounds of moans and groans, but it was a quiet night. It seems we took out all the zombies in the area. Morning had finally hit. Arthur was tired as hell, but he still managed to get the wagon fixed. Sadie was feeling a lot better. Zombie John Marston woke up from his zombie sleep, and Joe Miller came back as well. He said there was a campsite up ahead that we can go eat and have some coffee at before we journey ahead. Arthur definitely needed some caffeine in his system. He was going on no sleep. But as they left, a zombie came and grabbed Sadie from the back. We had to go rescue her, so we shot an arrow through the head. Don't worry, Sadie, we got you. We got back on the wagon and continued towards the campsite. We made it to the campsite, and there was a guy already dead there. We looked around to see if there was any zombies still nearby, and the coast was clear for now. So we sat by the campfire and brewed a nice pot of coffee. We didn't get to enjoy it though. There were zombies inbound. Arthur let loose a flurry of bullets, and we shot each and every one of those zombies dead. This apocalypse was getting worse. More zombies kept appearing every day. We finally rounded up the last of them and sat by the fire one more time. We had some coffee, but now we needed to refuel for the day. Luckily, we had some bear meat on stock, so we grilled up some bear meat and had ourselves a protein-filled breakfast. Now, normally Arthur would catch some Z's, but we were too close to rest now. That cup of coffee would have to do. We grabbed some weapons from our storage horse, and we got back on the wagon. It's time to go to Sandini. We did a little zombie hunting on the trail as well. After all, the less zombies that were on the road, the better life would be for fellow travelers. Our wagon was holding up thanks to Arthur's repair job, and it was smooth sailing. I don't know why Arthur didn't do this in the first place. Getting pelts to Sandini on foot with a pelt pack horse would have never made it. As we continued down the trail though, another storm had hit. It started to rain hard, and thunder and lightning were roaming the sky. We had to see if we could find some shelter, and we found an abandoned farm. We parked the wagon and secured the area. Zombies must love pelts or something, because they came in numbers here as well. But we took care of them. We tried to see if one of the abandoned houses were accessible, but it was locked up tight, barricaded on the other side of the door. So we looked around the property for anywhere else. We had to see if we could find somewhere dry. On the back of the farm there was an overhead though. It kept us plenty dry. We just had to wait out the storm. And wait we did. Until nighttime came. Hopefully we stay here till the morning without any zombie mayhem. That was wishful thinking though. Zombies came once again, and it was a gunfight on the farm. We were shooting and tooting. We just had to be careful not to get overran. It was a small horde thankfully though, so we took out any zombies that came. Some of them did sneak by though, and Arthur had to deal with them personally. We couldn't stay here. We had to move. We had to move, storming or not. So we saddled up on the wagon, and it looked like Joe Miller got knocked out. So I got him in the wagon, then assisted Sadie, taking out a zombie that was a whooping on her. And now we were off. We rode through the storm, dodging zombies on the road, trying not to crash into any more rocks. And finally we made it to the morning. Arthur was on 2 days of no sleep now. Most people go crazy at this point. We continued on the road, and we saw a small community be overrun by zombies, but we couldn't risk it for the biscuit. We could have potentially died if we tried to save them, so we had to keep moving. We made it to the swamps, and this is the farthest Arthur has ever been to get into Sandini. He was excited, and down the trail we ran to a small town called La Grasse. It was time to take a little breather. We've been sitting on that wagon for hours now, and Arthur's never been to this town before. So we got the blood flowing in his legs, did some squats. We had to keep a firm booty, even in the zombie apocalypse. And then we took a small walk around the town. It seemed pretty quiet except for a few zombies, and we unfortunately didn't get here in time to save this family. But that's the life we live in today. We decided not to waste any more time over here, and and we got back on the path of the pelt. We could almost smell Sandini, or maybe that was just all the zombie blood on us. We progressed to the swampy trails and end up crossing the bridge that connects us into Sandini. We finally made it, and the city was gorgeous. Snow covered the streets. There were people walking the streets, and they didn't seem to be in fear. That means there were no zombies near. This was the only safe haven in the zombie apocalypse, the only town that had never been infested before. And we finally made it. We hopped out of our cart and we grabbed our pelts. It was time to finally sell these babies. But not everything is this simple. There was a breach in the Sandini wall, and a couple of the townspeople were bitten. These fresh zombies invaded the market, and it was up to Arthur to clear them out. Nobody else in the town had experienced zombies like this, but Arthur was ready for the job. We hacked and slashed. We didn't come this far to die now. So we slayed 10, maybe even more zombies just to get these pelts here. Ain't nothing was stopping Arthur. Not this time. We dropped off our pelts, picked up our gold and Sadie, and it was time for a little R&R. Arthur's been sleepless for 2 days now, so we took a nice scenic walk throughout the streets of Sandini, and we headed to the saloon for a little rest and relaxation. And this one was even nicer than the one in Valentine. We really upgraded in life. We had a couple victory shots, but now there was a new worry in Arthur's mind. This was supposed to be the only city that wasn't infected, yet there was an outbreak in the middle of the market. For now, Arthur would stay here because he knew his services would be needed. This pelt trapper was just getting started, and this new outbreak in Sandini was changing everything. Arthur's felt pretty bad. So before Arthur gets back to his pelt trapping ways, he decided to right his wrong. He decided, come hell or high water, he would find a cure for John and get him back to his family safe and sound. These are the adventures that took place in order to cure John Marston. So it was just John and Arthur for now. Mr. Joel Miller had some business to attend to back in Valentine, and Sadie had a cat that needed feeding. Buddy, however, Arthur doesn't talk about Buddy anymore. Let's just say he's resting in a better place. John and Arthur find themselves in the wilderness, not really having any real direction. They were looking for somebody or something to help lead them in the right direction to find this cure for John. This led them to many dangerous encounters, but Arthur Morgan, he was pretty much an expert zombie slayer at this point, and sometimes you have to risk it in order to get the biscuit. So since we're in the summertime now, even more zombies are out prowling about, and this makes the journey hard. There's a lot more things that could kill us. So the duo spent their days roaming the land, practicing their shot, and of course fighting humans. If there was one thing that was getting even worse than the zombies, were the way humans were becoming. Supplies were getting scarce, and every human encountered, you never know. It was a shot in the dark if they'd be friendly or they were trying to kill you. But more often than not, they were trying to kill you. The odds were stacked against Arthur and John, but they always found hope, and hope is what kept them going. Every zombie they killed and every shot they took led them even closer to finding some kind of lead. John and Arthur stumbled upon an abandoned camp, and it had been wiped out. Looks like zombies chased out a few, but a few weren't so lucky as well. Every day it just got more dangerous. We ventured on the path until we found a friendly and exchanged some words. He mentioned a town up ahead that could potentially have some information for us, so Arthur decided to give it a go. Unfortunately, that town had been long gone. The buildings were burned down, and the only things moving were the dead walking. We looked around for a bit just to see if there may have been any survivors, but that was a no-go. Only the dead roam these lands. Further down the road, we found a group of men talking and went to go inquire to see if they knew anything. We changed our mind quick. These guys weren't friendly, and the zombies were coming in from those gunshots. There was no sense on staying out today. The sunset was quickly approaching, so we went to the closest town to ask about some rumors and relax a little bit. There was a well-dressed gentleman we asked some questions to, but he seemed a little bit crazy and was just blabbing about a friend that probably never existed. We led our horse into town, and this town, despite not really having any defenses, was quiet. There didn't seem to be any action here. No gunshots in the distance, and no zombies roaming the streets, which was a good sign. We headed to the saloon, of course, to get some drinks and to clear our head. Arthur promised John he'd find the cure, and that's what he was gonna do. So Arthur sat and pondered at the bar for a bit, having a beer to cool down from that hot sun. A little later, a group of dudes came into the bar, causing a ruckus. They slammed the dude's head right on the bar itself. Now Arthur didn't want to start a bloodbath, so we went to find a quieter location at the corner of the saloon. We propped ourselves up and started thinking even deeper. But all Arthur could think of was pelt trapping and hunting, but that didn't help John Marston. He was getting crazier by the day, and he was deteriorating pretty fast. There was no use thinking in the saloon. It was too loud, so Arthur decided to get some fresh air instead. And upon leaving the saloon, there was a man Arthur met, and he had a lead on the information Arthur was looking for. His name was Lenny, and after explaining everything that happened to John, Lenny decided to join. His family was killed by zombies, so he wanted to do anything he could do to help. Lenny was the man. Nighttime had hit though. There was no hotels in the area, so instead we went right outside of town and set up our own camp for the night. It was going to be another long journey, and nighttime was the worst to travel around, especially with more aggressive zombies. So Arthur, Lenny, and John chilled by that fire and had some deep sleep, because tomorrow was the start of yet another adventure, and who knows where it may lead them. Our journey continues in Rhodes. We woke up the next day, and our new friend Lenny had some information about a doctor, and this doctor was at a nearby ranch. So the team saddled up and left first thing in the morning. Rhodes was a nice area. The grass was green, the trails were nice and ridden, and the amount of zombies weren't as much as in other areas. And today was perfect riding weather. We cleared a few zombies from the trail and ended up riding onto a small farm. Immediately shots were fired, as if bandits had taken over. So we took care of the shooter, and then some of the zombies that popped up. Looks like the zombies were getting a free meal, with all the cows just roaming about. This wasn't the farm we needed, but we were close. So we saddled up again, but there was another ambush by bandits, so we took out a few, and during the confrontation, Arthur accidentally shot Lenny in the back of the head. It didn't look like Lenny was hurt, but he was bleeding profusely. Hopefully he was okay. We needed to get to the farm fast so we could patch that up. We continued down to the ranch with my two friends that I both shot in the back of the head. Accidentally, of course. I was only grateful that their heads didn't look like this, because there'd be no coming back from that. We rode through this scenic route and ran into yet another abandoned town. We cleared some of the undead that were roaming about and then continued onward. There were actually a lot of zombies that started to show up. Hopefully this wasn't a bad sign, because this farm was our only lead. Checking on Lenny, he was still bleeding pretty bad. We needed to get him patched up, but there were zombies hot on our trail. We didn't want to lead them to the ranch potentially, so we had to take out the ones that were following us. So we went in and fought a few, killing any undead that we saw. They had to be coming from somewhere close, and it looks like they were held up in a small little building on the side of the road. A bunch of them came out ready to eat. We had Lenny and John shooting from the back, and Arthur went in with a hatchet, hacking and slashing. There were zombies so deteriorated that they were literally walking skeletons. But don't let these zombies fool you. These zombies got hands, but hands don't match up to a hatchet unless you grab Arthur from the back. We continued killing these zombies until there was none left to kill. We went to make sure there was no more left inside the building, and it was empty. Now we found a note, and in the note, it said something about an oil field and about a group of survivors that were heading there because this place got overran. Arthur kept this in the back of his mind, and then the zombies were coming back. So we got out of there while we could to find this doctor at the ranch. We rode down the road this time with no stops. It was actually a quiet ride for once, and then we saw the ranch on our sights, plus a bunch of the undead on the outskirts. This was not a good sign. We hopped off our horse and took out a few zombies near the entrance. It looked like the zombies had already gotten here before us, but we had to double check. We walked through the barn and it was empty as can be. No survivors there. We ran into the middle of the farm, and it looked like the livestock was still alive and well fenced off for a few of the gates, but no humans in sight. A few of the doors were locked and boarded up, and all you could hear was silence inside. We continued to search a little longer, and there was nothing. We did, however, see a zombie that walked past us as if we were nothing. He even gave us a dirty look. This lead ended up being pretty dry. There were no survivors. All the houses were boarded up, besides a few, but those few were empty as well. We did, however, converse with a cowgirl that was riding through. She told us this town was overran a few days back, and the survivors fled down road to where they had church on Sundays. We had just come from that same church, and Arthur remembered the note and what it said about the oil field. The oil field was right up the road as well, so that was our next destination. If we had any kind of chance, we had to get there fast. So we left the ranch and started heading towards the oil field. We already went to 2 stops that had been overrun. We had to run into some luck sooner or later, so Arthur was hoping. We saw an abandoned cart on the road, and Arthur was hoping this wasn't one of the survivors' cart. We searched around the cart a little bit to see if there were any clues left behind, but there was nothing. Lenny was still bleeding though. So a little farther down the trail, we reached the entrance to the oil field. We were immediately met with zombies running towards us, from the front and the back. Zombies had followed us from the trail. They were knocking weapons off Arthur, as well as his hat. We had to get them fists out. Lenny and John kept the zombies on the trail at bay as Arthur went in deeper into the factory. And inside, there was no one in sight. Nobody living or nobody dead. It was almost an eerie feeling, but Arthur continued on until he saw a single zombie on a platform, but it soon disappeared and their friend came out. Arthur got lucky and hit the zombie with the butt of his gun, and as soon as he turned the corner, there was an army waiting. So Arthur got a couple of clean headshots, and as soon as that group was dispersed of, even more came. Luckily, John came from the back as well and had some cover fire. These zombies were coming out of nowhere. If there was this many zombies in this location, there's no way the survivors survived here. They either got eaten or they moved on somewhere else. There was just too many, and they seemed to just keep coming. It was quiet again, so this is our chance to search around the factory. We walked around to see if any doors would open. It was tightly boarded shut. We did, however, see a sign that said "Do not enter." Maybe it was the survivors trying to keep people from opening up the factory, but I think the zombies got out anyway. This place had been overrun out the yin-yang, and it definitely wasn't safe for anyone. We did one last check around the back of the building, and nothing. This lead was a bust as well. Everywhere we went seemed to be overrun. We did one final check at some of the lower buildings in the area, circling around the neighborhood, and every house was empty. If somebody was living, they probably would have came out by now. With no more leads to follow, we went to the closest town nearby, and that happened to be the town that mostly solves all of our problems, Valentine. We tied up our horse and went to the saloon for some drinks. We had to go back to the drawing board and see if we can scrounge up any new information to continue searching for the cure. So we took this time to clean up some of our gear and get a good night's rest. It was going to be another long day tomorrow. While we slept though, our main man Lenny talked to some contacts he had in Valentine. There was a town to the west that may have some more additional information to follow up on. So we hit the trail as soon as we could. It sounded like another promising lead, but the only way to find out was to pursue it. So we rode like bullseye through the wind while getting some bullseyes ourselves. It was one of those hot, cool days. The sun was perfect and the wind was breezy, but it was still hot and sweaty. So we took a quick swim while we could. You have to enjoy the little things in life. Further down the trail, we stopped at a small trading post, and it's a good thing we did. As soon as we did some bartering, a zombie came in and punched the shopkeeper square in the nose. Arthur had his back though, and even disposed of the body for free. Afterwards, we continued riding in the rain, and on the way we saw a clearing. A group of horses were enjoying their free time with not a care in the world. How nice that would be. But we were stuck killing zombies. Down the road, we got chased onto a farm where we had to fight with guns and bullets. There was a whole posse of bandits that wanted what we had, so we took cover when we needed to and shot a few heads. We even brought the Dynamite out for this fight. We couldn't get killed by these guys. Zombie John would never make it on his own, so we took care of all the bandits that showed up and a few undead that came to say hi as well, until the coast was clear. There had to be a reason the bandits were here though. Maybe there was a stockpile of supplies. That wasn't the case. Instead, we found a group of massacred survivors stuffed in the barn. I told you the humans were the worst. We searched one of the houses looking for supplies or even survivors, but as always, it was quiet as well. We did, however, find some coordinates while looting the body on this small ranch. There may be a survivor outpost hidden away in the mountains, but it was going to be tricky to find. So we followed the trail to the end point, and then we had to go off-road. There was supposed to be a small trail we could follow and a well-fortified cave at the end. But how do we get there? Arthur had no idea. We checked a few spots, and there was some zombies climbing mountains. The mountain terrain made it difficult to traverse, but we made it work. We were searching for hours until we did find a narrow passageway. There were a couple zombies though, even way up here, and that wasn't a good sign. We found the cave and went inside, but it was too dark to go further. We had to grab a light source. So we grabbed the torch from our horse and proceeded back inside. The entrance was small, and as soon as we got inside to explore a little bit deeper, some damn zombies came in and rushed us. We were throwing hands in the dark, and Arthur didn't know if he was punching zombies or if he was punching rock. But we knocked a few heads and teeth out and eventually backed out of the cave. We were gonna need 2 hands just in case there were more zombies in here. So we grabbed our lantern instead, and a good thing we did because the zombie actually came out of the cave. Damn, this was not a good sign. If the zombies infiltrated this area, maybe there was no safe areas anymore. Maybe only the big towns stood a chance. We finally got into the cave with our lantern in hand and a revolver in the other. Zombies waiting to punch us right in the face, but we saw her beforehand. There was a narrow bridge connecting to the other side, and zombies were blocking the path. The survivors had turned in here, and all that was left were the undead. We took a few of the zombies that rushed at us, and then proceeded to cross the bridge. Another zombie jumped out at us and knocked the gun out of our hand, but sometimes Arthur's hands are the most dangerous tool he has. We walked deeper into the cave cautiously, and it was quiet. You could only hear the dripping of water. Then we reached a ladder that let us go down a little bit deeper, and it was still silent. There was a ledge that told us that people did once live here, but now they were undead or they fled. so we left the cave and went back down the mountain. Today was just not our lucky day either. Our additional 2 leads fell short. We'd have to forge our own path, but we couldn't forge our own path during the nighttime. It was too dangerous, so we had to go to a safe town and stay there for the night. The next closest town was Strawberry, and although a few zombies got inside the town, it for the most part was relatively safe. So we rode through the night with a lantern lighting the way, as well as the moon blessing us with its glow, until we eventually made it to Strawberry. We got off our horse. I think it's a good thing we came to Strawberry, because there were 2 bandits that showed up, but Arthur quickly dispatched them. And then after the bandits, there were a few zombies that showed up too. Somebody needs to give this man a medal, as he took them out for the safety of Strawberry. In today's world, even when you are safe, you're really not safe. We took a nice quiet walk through Strawberry and went to the local hotel to get a room. We slept the night away, and the next day was a new day. And who knows how many days you have left. We had to make this one count. Zombie John was counting on us, and if we weren't careful with our gun again, Lenny would be counting on us too. Lenny did work his magic once again though. He scrounged up a few contacts he had in the Strawberry, and our next adventure began. We continue our journey back in Strawberry, where Lenny found one of his old contacts and good friends. His name was Charles. He was a master of herbs and ingredients and believed all diseases could be cured by the plants provided by planet Earth. So Charles joined our journey, but now we needed an ingredient sniffing dog as well. And now since Buddy is resting in peace, it's time to find a Buddy Jr. So we leave the quaint town of Strawberry and ride on over to Valentine. We're looking for a stray dog we can call our own. So we tie up the horses and look around town for a doggo we can take. We look around for quite a bit, and there doesn't seem to be one in sight. Hopefully they all weren't eaten by zombies. While we were still searching for the dog, the horrors of humans were still in plain sight.
You took 3 innocent lives, and for that...
Well, let me have a rule and a saw and a bow. Now cut it.
Just run home.
I'll climb up the ladder with a hammer and a nail. Now nail it.
But afterwards, we did find a willing companion. We recruited the dog, and now we had Buddy Jr. We had a fully stacked team, and Charles had the information to find the ingredients that could hopefully cure John Marston. Our first location led us to a cave, which housed a golden waterfall. So we proceeded in carefully, with a couple slips and falls. And it was quiet. Golden Waterfall was an accurate name as well. There was gold-looking material laced everywhere, and even the water had a golden hue. We continued walking through the cave, and surprisingly, it was empty of the undead. The ingredient we were looking for, though, was at the base of the waterfall. So walking a little further, we could hear the rush of water. We were getting close, and then we saw a light at the end of the tunnel. We had made it. The waterfall was in sight. We made it out of the other side, grabbed the plant we were looking for, and we were met with the zombie opposition. And we haven't had any action for a bit now, so it was game on. There was no end in sight for the zombie ambush, so we had to flee and head to our next location. This one was close by as well, and we found ourselves next to another cave. But as soon as we got close to the next ingredient, we were met with an army of zombies, and these guys were heading straight for Arthur. So we clipped a few with our revolver. That barely made a dent, so we took out a few more, and quickly realized we needed something with a little bit more boom. So we grabbed the dynamite, but we didn't want to accidentally kill our horse like last time. So we led the pack away and started unleashing dynamite. Dynamite was working. The dynamite explosions gave us enough time to get to the cave and grab the ingredient. So as Arthur's teammates covered him, we got what we needed, but the zombies were still coming in. So we threw the last of our dynamite until we ran out. Arthur's never seen this many zombies in one go before, and it was almost impossible to pass them. So we had to take them out one by one. Arthur went through a grueling battle, chopping up zombies, but in the end was victorious. We had 2 ingredients down, and the sun was setting. There was a town in the distance called Armadillo. It was time to rest there before the sun set, so the gang rode to the town, and it wasn't what we expected. Zombies were roaming about, ashes were in the street, all the buildings were boarded up and locked, and fires were rampant. Nobody but the undead lived here now, and it definitely wasn't safe to stay the night. We had no choice but to continue down the road and set up camp somewhere safe in the wilderness. But we had a good team behind us: John, Lenny, Charles, and now Buddy Jr. We had a few more ingredients to get though, before we could cure John Marston and get back to our pelt trapping ways. So after collecting 2 ingredients, Arthur and the gang headed to Sandini to get some more information on potential locations, and it was successful. We had 2 more locations that we needed to go find, and while we were in Sandini, Arthur decided to upgrade his gear. We grabbed ourselves a nice Colt pistol, a lightweight but powerful zombie slayer. We're gonna need this. We even packed some extra supplies on our horse now too. Even got our horse a nice neck lantern so we can keep our hands free to fight even more zombies. With everything ready to go, it was time for Arthur and the gang to head off. We walked the streets one last time and even stumbled upon a lost fox. The fox was more than happy to come along with us. Arthur was hoping the wild side of the fox would keep it out of danger. And now they were off, headed to the first location of the day. And the location was tough to find, but it was found. But before we could enter the cave, you know those zombies came to stop us. So it was time to test out our new Colt pistol, and the pistol turned out to be magnificent. It was an excellent zombie slayer. Now it was time to enter the cave. It was a short entrance into a high ceiling part of the cave, and in that cave was a circle of statues with some sort of angel statue in the middle. We had to write this down. But we came here for the ingredient. Arthur and Charles walked around for a bit, and then Charles spotted it. It was a plant wedged between the rocks, and we grabbed it. Ain't no time for dilly-dallying though. We may have spent longer than we thought in the cave, because by the time we got out, it was nighttime and raining. So the gang saddled up and rode out of there. The undead were already coming. There was a building up ahead with lights on. We thought maybe it'd be a safe haven, but as soon as we approached, the only thing living there were zombies. So Arthur tried to wrangle them up so we could throw a dynamite in the middle of them. We accidentally blew ourselves up. Thankfully the horse was still alive though, but we had fallen to the ground, so we had no choice but to fight. Arthur took out the tomahawk and started slicing and dicing. Zombie bodies littered the train tracks, but Arthur was okay. Maybe a black eye or 2. But we survived. We went to go scavenge some supplies at that nearby cache and proceeded on the railroad, enjoying the quiet of the night until we got to our next destination. This place was on top of a mountain, nice and tucked away from prying eyes, and we had arrived. There was a skeleton of a beast unknown, and growing on those bones were some mushrooms, supposedly one of the most powerful ingredients you could find in this dead wasteland. So we grabbed the shrooms, and the zombies came. We took out a couple, but we were stuck in a small area, and there was only one way out, so we couldn't wait for them to come to us. We had to fight our way out. We cleared the path of a few more and continued riding down the narrow trail. We looped around a few and then ran past a couple others. We had 2 more ingredients now, and there was another location we needed to go. So we continued down the winding path until we got to the bottom. There was even more undead waiting, but ain't no problem with the new Colt. We crossed the river up ahead and noticed a guy just standing in the middle of it. Zombies were running towards us, so Arthur decided to go and warn him. The dude wasn't listening, so he pointed a gun at him and he finally ran away. But he ran away without his supplies, so we snagged a few for ourselves. We had to get out of here though. The zombies caught up to us, so we shot a few to buy us some time to get on our horses, and we are off once again to find yet another ingredient. This location took us to an abandoned cabin. It was quiet and no zombies could be seen yet, so we entered the cabin and searched a couple of the rooms, but there seemed to be nothing around until we got to the back. There was a ladder descending into the basement, and in the basement we found our ingredient, some kind of mixing solution. And while we were down there was an unopened weapon box waiting for us. We had a nice new semi-automatic shotgun waiting for us. How convenient. We had yet another tool to slay some zombies, and it's a good thing we did pick it up, because when we exited the cabin, we scoured the land a bit, tried to open the outhouse, and then a zombie came up behind us and tried to out us, but she was too slow. But our undead friends were coming too. One of our undead friends learned a new dance move, but Arthur wasn't having none of it. So the gang took out the zombies that tried to rush us and decided this cabin would be the place we rest for a bit. It seemed we had all the ingredients we needed in order to cure John Marston. We just needed to find the right location with the right properties in order to synthesize the cure, and that would take some time to find. So they shacked up at this cabin in the meantime, plotting points on maps of potential locations. We needed to get John cured. It's been a while since he's seen his family, so they rested at the cabin until their next outing. We were close to getting John back to normal. It was their final leg, and they were safe for now, but the undead are always there, whether you see them or not. We wake up from spending the night in the hidden cabin, safe from the zombies and the elements. Charles and Lenny were able to mark a spot on the map that would be our best bet, a place said to be powerful with ancient magic. Zombies were crazy enough, so we had to give it a try. John was getting worse by the day, so the team soaked up the sunlight, packing up their goods for the next leg of the journey. They had a long trek ahead of them, and they needed to be at their best. The zombies were only growing in numbers, and with numbers comes power. Larger groups of zombies started roaming the lands, and nowadays, it's rare to see people even on the trail. But John had to get back to his family. We can't just leave his wife and child at home with an uncle with lumbago, so it was time to head off. Or at least we tried to head off. We had a mini ambush from zombies before we could actually get going, but our shots were hitting, so we stopped them from progressing and then finally saddled up for the long journey ahead. But we had one more obstacle before we could actually go. Another small group came in for the ambush, but Arthur's still the sharpest sharpshooter in all the land. The team finally set out on the trail, the sun behind them and nothing but hope in front of them. Multiple groups of zombies on the trail and a poor stranger not knowing what was coming towards them. Arthur had to help, but the game was hitting their shots pretty good, and Arthur's new Colt pistol was working its magic still. This gun was a very good investment. The journey had just started and there were a bunch of bodies to account for it, but this is only the beginning. There are a lot more coming. And speaking of that, as soon as we got done with those zombies, we were ambushed by a group of bandits while we were in the middle of another horde of zombies. This was a fight for our life. We were shooting zombies, shooting bandits. Laney was getting hit in the liver, but Arthur's seen some stuff, so these guys ain't gonna stop him. Arthur and the team dealt with the zombie and bandit combo, and it was time to finally hopefully get out of here before something else came and tried to kill us. So we followed the river for a little bit in the openness of the grasslands so we could have a 360 viewpoint. The forest had a lot of guerrilla warfare with zombies just hopping out the bushes, but while we were out on the grasslands, we did see a pretty cool sight we've seen for the first time in this zombie apocalypse. We had nature fighting back. A mountain lion was chomping on zombies, and Arthur was proud of that majestic beast. He never had the honor of skinning one, and he wouldn't make this one his first. He was just impressed there was still some alive, so we helped clear out some zombies surrounding the mountain lion to hopefully let it live a little bit longer, and we continued down the grasslands. It didn't seem like the grasslands were that much safer. There were still zombies roaming about, but at least they were easier to see. We ran past a few zombies and ran into a firefight on the farm. We were also followed by a group of zombies, so Arthur popped a few heads to clear our backline, even getting up a little close and personal as well to get the job done. The backline zombies took too long though. The zombies that were attacking the farmers on the farm had all perished, and now the zombies from the farm came to say hello as well. So it was time to get real personal. It was time for Arthur to go hack and slash once again, and hopefully he'd make it this time. Arthur was making it, but these zombies were kicking Foxy, so Arthur had to pump up the fists. He had to hit him hard enough to scramble them brains, and then there was one zombie alone picking on Foxy. Arthur made sure he never got up again. It looked like for the time being the zombie army had been quelled. We did however see John Marston get knocked out, but he's a zombie already. He'll be alright. So he picked his body up, and we had to chill at the farm for a bit until John Marston became conscious again. So Lenny and Charles patrolled the gate and the rest of the farm to make sure there were no ambient zombies around, and Arthur took John inside the cabin. We checked the cabin and tossed John on the couch, but he fell on the floor. He'll be right though. I guess it's better than being stuffed in the back of a wagon. And then Lenny and Charles joined Arthur inside. They had a couple hours to kill, and they already faced hordes of the undead as well as a few bandits. They took this time to rest up, smoke up, and get their minds right. So they shacked up in this cabin, but what happened next was unexpected. Nighttime had fallen and John Marston was still unconscious. A storm started to brew, lightning like you've never seen, and the undead were ravenous. You've never seen anything like this before. The undead rolled in just like the storm did, and it was a fight for survival. Arthur ran back inside the cabin to try and create a chokehold, but his partner and horse kept getting in the way. We didn't want to shoot anybody in the head again, so we went back outside. It was time to bring out the axe. These zombies were wielding weapons too, so Arthur and the team fought tooth and nail, with lightning touching down closer than it's ever been before, sparks flying, the wind gusting, zombies wielding knives and coming in from all directions. Storms like these were common now, but nothing to this degree. It was hard to even keep track of the zombies. The rain and thunder were so loud, you couldn't hear the footsteps, but we had to survive the night. But the horde of zombies just wouldn't stop coming. These zombies were relentless, but we weren't giving up though. Lenny, Charles, and Arthur were slaying zombies. Left, right, up, down, diagonal, wherever they came from, they were getting a bullet to the head. It seemed we had killed our last zombie, and the storm finally cleared up. It was daytime now, and the group had been fighting all night long. Zombie corpses everywhere, but they had did it. Everybody survived surprisingly, and it was time to move out. John had finally risen again, and we headed back out to our final destination. We weren't trying to run into any of those storms again. So the team left back on the trail, and for a change they saw something new. A shepherd and his sheep grazing in the grass, and they were thriving pretty peacefully, for the moment at least. The team continued down the path for hours. Thankfully, fewer zombies than yesterday roaming about. It made it easier to travel the path. They were making great ground today, but the team was out of food, and we saw the perfect opportunity to get some. Arthur saw some wild boar on the road, and they went for a little hunting trip. But of course, nothing goes smooth nowadays. We had to skin it, but first, we had to make sure the area was clear and safe. The zombies tried to eat the dead boar before Arthur could skin it, so we had to take them out first. So we cleared the area of the bigger incoming horde, and the gang covered Arthur while he skinned the boar and collected the meat. Now the team hadn't eaten for quite some time, so we needed to find a quick place to set up camp and cook some of this meat. So we rode on our horses for a few hours, and we actually stumbled upon a camp ourselves. The guy wasn't too friendly. We tried to convince him we were friendlies, and we were just trying to cook some meat. The guy pointed a gun at us, and of course the gunshots attracted more undead. Our new campsite needed to be cleared, so we got to clearing. The undead had been cleared, and it was time to make some food before more undead came. So we sat and enjoyed some of the most delicious pig you could ever eat, and continued our tiring journey until we finally reached our location. We reached the location, and of course it wasn't clear, so we quickly cleared the zombies and found what we were looking for. A place with magical properties where we can combine the ingredients we collected to hopefully cure John Marston. We put the ingredients we collected inside of this pot and let it brew for a bit. We then had to incapacitate John Marston. So we did what we did to him in the first place and shot him in the back of the head, but twice. Once he was unconscious, we took him to the curative pot and we threw him in, accidentally missing. So we threw him in once again, and that was close enough. The mist generated from this pot would be enough. So now the team had to wait. The next time John Marston arose again, he should be back to his old self, but only time will tell. The team set up camp and wait and could only hope for the best. We had to defend John Marston as he was being cured. The zombies seem attracted to this magical place, but we've handled way worse in the past. So the team defended John all night long, and John laid by the pot, letting the magical properties penetrate his undead body. John was resurrecting, slowly but surely. His wife and kid were waiting, but John needed to hurry up because Foxy can only take so many kicks, and Arthur can only take so many punches straight to the kidney. Damn. And the next morning, John Marston was back to normal. We had one last feat to accomplish though. We needed to get John back to his family and reunited at Beecher's Hope. So the team saddled up and headed deep into the trail. Arthur finally cured John, and we couldn't let any zombies take him out or accidentally shoot him in the back of the head again. We barely made it over here in the first place. So we traveled the trail, popping zombie heads and enjoying the somewhat calmness of the day. The gang rode for a couple hours, and Valentine was on the path. So Arthur tied up his horse, and the gang decided to get some breakfast. They were fighting zombies all night, and it was time to fuel up. So they had a quick bowl of beef stew and a health tonic for the energy boost. Then it was back on the path. Nothing was stopping the gang getting John back to his family, except the shortcut Arthur tried to take. The gang tried to cut through the forest, and they were quickly jumped by zombies. Damn. We were on the final leg of the journey. We couldn't let this family of undead take us out now. So Arthur hacked and slashed, slaying zombies left and right, taking punches himself, and of course giving out punches for free as well. 24 zombies had been slain, and right when they got back on the path again, there were bandits trying to control the bridge. We didn't have time for that. So a couple headshots later, we cleared the path, and this presented quite a nice opportunity. There was a wagon in mint condition, so Arthur decided to take the wagon for a little bit more protection on the way to Beecher's Hope. So we commandeered it, the gang hopped in, and the journey continued. We traveled for a couple more hours, crossing bridges, rolling across the water, and even gazing upon a rainbow. We were close now. Beecher's Hope was only a few miles away. The gates to the ranch were in sight, and we entered, and we must have made it right on time, because as soon as we arrived, the zombies were running towards the house. What a way for John to come back. We took out the zombies with a couple shots, and it cleared the area. It was time to get John reunited. Jack came out the house, acting like Jack of course, so we went to go see his wife first instead, and she didn't seem to care either, but we got the job done. John's back with his family and mostly cured. It might take a few days for him to reacclimate to his old self, but now Arthur could get back to his old pelt trapping ways. The lands were increasingly becoming less dense with animals to hunt. The zombie population was growing, but people still needed clothes. Arthur needed to collect pelts to fill that deficit, but he did deserve a few weeks off. So the gang went their separate ways. John and Arthur stayed on the ranch, rebuilding and relaxing, and Arthur soon made plans to go back into the wilds to collect even more pelts and try to get over to Sandini.